So we read last time the description of the human being deep in us, of forgotten kinship points, and a faint voice of ecstasy and prayer calls to those lucent, lost immensities. So it's so gratifying, perhaps, to say that we are kin. Kinship is that we belong to the same family. We are part of the divine family. We have forgotten that we are born from that. That is our origin. The divine is our origin. But that sense of belonging is somewhere deep, hidden, and it is from that source that a call can rise. That is faint voice of prayer, of joy, of aspiration can rise. How can we aspire or pray to something we don't know exists? Somewhere we know it exists. Because we know it exists, we can call. We can call because that part is there already in us. And so it is this which is perhaps our saving grace, which we usually do not remember. Even when we fail to look into our souls, which is so often the case, even when we fail to look into our souls or lie embedded in earthly consciousness, still have we paths that grow towards the light. See the infinite grace that is there, as if from deep within the urge, the push goes on. The evolution of consciousness continues. The presence emerges because it has plunged deep into our nature. Our nature is ignorant. Our nature is busy with all kinds of superficial surface movements and thoughts and activities. But the essential reason why we are is that we have to become expressions of that which is our origin. Our origin is the divine. Our present expression is not an expression of the divine. But if we can remember to relate to that deep in us, that kinship points, and we can call and go back to that home. Like there is, I think, a very beautiful line in one of Wordsworth's poems that trailing clouds of glory do we come from God, who is our home. We come from Him, He is our home. And that is the essential greatness of the human nature. That glory is not ours, that glory is His. It is all around us. We've forgotten. It's one of the most terrible things, this oblivion, this forgetting. It's a sign of mental inertia, of ignorance. And I suppose one of the reasons why the ancients insisted on constant memory. Remember who you are. Mother's and Sri Aurobindo's motto, remember and offer. Never lose contact. Remembrance, memory, they help us not to lose contact with the origin. So even when we do not remember, the action of the grace continues. Still have we paths that grow towards the light. Yet are there luminous tracts and heaven serene, and Eldorados of splendor and ecstasy, and temples to the Godhead none can see. So here, in spite of when we lie embedded in this surface, murky, impure, earthly consciousness, just like the soil doesn't know how much work the seed is doing from below, trying to emerge into the light. In the same way, there are parts within us, unknown to us, that grow towards the light. And so someday that will burst into the light and manifest the divine. Yet are there luminous tracts and heavens serene, not just light, but worlds and territories and kingdoms that are slowly opening up before us, and El Dorados, the land of gold. A land of gold which in the Middle Ages was considered gold is the symbol of the Supreme. And it is this land of continuous happiness and joy and beauty that is waiting for us, of splendor and ecstasy and temples to the Godhead none can see. We have to make ourselves into expressions of the divine, like a temple which is a house of God. We also are temples of the divine. None can see, not even ourselves. We ourselves have forgotten that we house the divinity within us. And it is a very special privilege to be able to hold that presence inside us. And when we are aware of this, then it radiates, it shines, and the outer nature becomes an expression of that inner presence. It is always there, that presence. Some part in the being is maybe faintly aware. A shapeless memory lingers in us still. It is there somewhere. Shapeless, as if it is not really part of our conscious existence, but we have many layers of our nature. It is not really in the subconscious. It is in some higher, deeper consciousness. It is there. The memory, the presence of that presence is always there. And that is why perhaps even when we, for the most part, forget about the divine, yet when there is difficulty or suffering or pain, we automatically turn to the divine. Turn to Mother and say, please help me. How can I turn to her? How can I remember her if I am not in touch with her somewhere? Somewhere she is always there, near me. Most of the time we don't bother with it. That is our ingratitude. But she never leaves us. And so this very beautiful experience takes place. A shapeless memory lingers in us still. Still, in spite of us. Still also means always. Still has both meanings. It is there, in spite of us, it is always there. And sometimes, when our sight is turned within, earth's ignorant veil is lifted from our eyes. There is a short, miraculous escape. That is the whole hindrance, the veil of ignorance. The veil of ignorance that we consider our knowledge, mind, doubt, questions, hesitations, all these that make up this veil. We don't believe. We forget. It takes so many forms, this opposition. If we can plunge deep within, pushing aside that veil, and the whole canto, by the way, you will see, has this one theme that repeats itself over and over again, is go within. To go within, to find the divine, you don't have to go very far. Go right inside. He is there, waiting for us to turn to Him waiting for us to acknowledge, not only acknowledge Him, but to love Him, to identify ourselves with Him. And this is the first and most important aspect of the secret knowledge. Just go inside. We grow within. We don't go within only, we grow. We become deeper, richer, stronger. We get in touch with the eternal and the infinite. All that is there waiting for us. So sometimes when our sight is turned within, and if we can make that sometimes more often, not once in a while, start with once in a while, make it turn again and again, but in all sincerity, in all consciousness. One of the problems that if we keep on just reciting the name, like we have a tradition of japa, you go inside, you repeat the name, you say Mama, or you say the name of your Ishta Devata or whatever, it can become mechanical, routine. It doesn't break down the walls of the inner barrier. It has to be every time, it is as if for the first time, with all the sincerity that you are capable of. We can say it all the time, we can say it in one time, but the thing is that it has to be spoken with absolute sincerity, with absolute faith, with absolute surrender. That is where there is a short, miraculous escape from the clutches of this earthly ignorance and darkness. When that happens, this narrow fringe of clamped experience we leave behind, meted to us as life. What we call living, we are so interested in our daily life. He calls it just a fringe of reality. Life is a vast field of energy. That energy that is really a projection from the Supreme Consciousness. And it is holding us up. She is the force, she is life, she is the energy. Without it, there can be no life. But we consider living just something that is some kind of play of forces that pass through our minds and our nerves and our bodies, and you say, yes, I am pushed by this impulsion, by that desire, by that interest, and then I feel so alive when I enjoy something. This is such a, you might say, distortion, and such a huge reality that is there behind us. It is us. We are part of that ocean. Life is like an ocean. We instead consider that we are just on the edge of the sea and say, this is the ocean. This narrow fringe, which is measured out to us, which is as if meted to us, and we say this is called living. So that when we sit quietly, you say, come alive. You're not doing anything. Do something with your life. Perhaps the person who is sitting quietly is doing much more. Instead of running here and there and outwardly plunging himself in all kinds of external activities. Who knows? So this narrow fringe of clamped experience, it is clamped by our blindness, our ego, which we have made our guide. We leave behind. Meted to us as life. Our little walks are insufficient to reach. Walk is also the place where you walk. Walk does not mean only to walk, to the way you move. Walk is also where you move. So this narrow fringe is our walk. This is the territory, this is the area which we say, this is my time, I live from this day to that day. After that I have to leave the earth. I have been allowed this much time and I do whatever I can within that time. I have already made up my mind. I don't say I have come from the eternal and I am part of infinity and eternity. And that is what the mind says. The mind likes to put things into small compartments and make definitions and say living starts on a particular day, it ends on a particular day. The origin is long before that day, and the end goes on, there is no end. There is absolutely no end. There is a wonderful poem of Sri Aurobindo called Is This the End? He's talking about death, and at the end he says, there is no end. Still there is no end. It just goes on and on and on. It's a play of forces. It's like wave after wave in the ocean. Our souls can visit in great lonely hours still regions of imperishable light. First condition again, you have to turn to the soul, go deep inside. Lonely, where you are cut yourself off from all attachments and all desires and all surface thoughts and all outer activities. That is the first condition for this inner turning, this inner concentration. Again, turn within, as he's going to repeat over and over again. Our souls can visit in great lonely hours. You can be lonely any crowd, it doesn't matter. You don't have to sit alone in a room or under a tree. You can be in the middle of all kinds of activities outwardly and yet be lonely, to be alone with the divine all the time and not be connected with all this surface noise and surface changes and all the excitement that all these noises bring with them. No. We have to train ourselves. This is part of the tapasya, to be as often as possible, to be alone with the divine. No matter what we are doing, any activity, it should not take away from us this connection with the divine. When this happens, our souls can visit in great lonely hours still regions of imperishable light. All-seeing eagle peaks of silent power and moon-flame oceans of swift, fathomless bliss and calm immensities of spirit space. You have the supreme presence of stillness, of existence, of power of consciousness, of supreme ananda. So that loneliness is very rich. Kingdoms of consciousness, of light, of power, all-seeing eagle peaks. On the heights, it is the eagle alone that can stare into the sun with his eyes that are completely unblinded by the light. And so here we can, when we are completely open to the divine, that sense of light which is also power, Chit Shakti, and moon flame oceans, because the moon is also symbol of delight, the ananda, the soma wine that is part of the play of delight of the gods, moon flame oceans of swift, fathomless bliss and calm immensities of spirit space. It is as if this bliss and calm, on the mental level you say they are contradictory, but it is a bliss that is always calm. It is not a superficial thrill. It is dwelling in that ocean of ananda. This is what man can be. This is what usually man is not. But sometimes there are a few who do this consciously, who make the effort of embodying this experience. In the unfolding process of the self, sometimes the inexpressible mystery elects a human vessel of descent. That supreme consciousness, hidden mostly to the surface vision of man, that's why it is mystery. Mystery is also the sacredness, that which is hidden because we are blind. I don't know whether it is truly hidden, but we have turned ourselves away from these things. But when some being has this continuous aspiration and with great, you might say, conscious endurance and call, it is not just a short moment of aspiration, but continuously calling, then that being finds that the human vessel is capable of becoming a channel of the divine force. The human vessel is a channel, but the channels for most of us are blocked. Our channels are not clean, they are blocked by ignorance, by ego, by all the other things of the mind and life and body. But if you can purify your being, offer it to the divine, make it a vessel, allow the Adhar, as this is called in the olden days, to receive the divine force, it will be transmitted without interruption. So sometimes these beings are the leaders of the race. That's why the first line of the canto was, "On a height he stood, that looked towards greater heights." This height on which he stands is the starting point of a much higher journey, which is the embodiment of the human possibility, that he can keep on rising and rising towards that highest truth which is himself. The human is divine. Man is God when he can become identified with the divine. So this is the mystery. When that happens, that opening takes place, a breath comes down, a force, an inspiration. He's spoken earlier of inspiration, an energy, a breath comes down from a supernal air. A presence is born, a guiding light awakes, a stillness falls upon the instruments. The force comes down, the presence which is not manifested begins to be manifested, the divine presence, a guiding light which was not lit. We have to light the inner lamp. Then it awakes. We have lamps inside us, but we have not lit them. So this is our contribution. We have to open, we have to allow the light to come in, we have to receive, we have to respond. And then the rest of the being does not doubt, does not get disturbed, does not question. It allows the force to do its work. Because there are moments when even beings who are exceptional, not necessarily spiritually, consciously active, but like a genius, he is open to some connection with a higher world, but it doesn't last, because a moment comes when he can't receive it anymore. He breaks down under the pressure. But if he does not, he remains quiet, calm. So then the saint, the sage, is really an expression of a divine manifestation. So here the seer, that is not a thinker. The poet is a seer. Kavi means the seer. He sees this. He knows this because he is that. He lives it. That is the spiritual significance behind art also. That there is a kind of an opening to another level of consciousness. When the rest of the being has allowed itself to fall silent. Usually this does not happen after a while. The rest of the being starts getting excited or interested or troubled or tired, or in different ways there are reactions of doubt or disbelief, and the whole process is spoilt. So a stillness falls upon the instruments, fixed, motionless, like a marble monument, stone calm. The body is a pedestal supporting a figure of eternal peace. The body too participates. Using the image of the marble. The marble of all stones is the most pure. It is and does hide in it forms of perfection. With the help of the vision of the artist, he sees hidden in the marble a divine idol, a presence, a beauty that is there. It's the same with the body. The body can become an expression of the divine. All depends on how quiet one is, open one is, and allows the force to do its work without interference. That is one way you receive the force, you transmit it. The body is the instrument. It is not a yoga that asks us to move away from the physical world. It can be transmitted through the body as well. Mind, life, body, they are all intermediaries, instruments to manifest the divine consciousness. Or, in a different form of yoga, a revealing force sweeps blazing in power. Power of revelation, of a kind of an instant illumination, which purifies, which burns down darkness, which burns down ignorance. Revealing force sweeps blazing in. Out of some vast superior continent, knowledge breaks through, trailing its radiant seas. This sense of revelation that comes down and breaks the narrowness of the channel of mind, first of all, and of the vital, the subconscious. So it's like oceans, forces of light and power and knowledge that come through. And nature, the human being, trembles with the power, the flame. Almost breaks down the force of nature that is usually the human embodiment that is so concerned with its own security, its own safety. I can't bear this, too much light and too much power and too much joy. I can't take it for so long. One of the reasons why we can't really concentrate or turn to the spiritual life for too long at a time, we feel that time to time I have to break this activity, do something a little less concentrated. We need to come back to the surface consciousness. It indicates that we're still not deeply rooted in that spiritual consciousness. But it can be done, and it is done only in the beginning by the few who have only this one goal. So this comes, nature, the human, is aware that it has to be a transmitter of something more than human. Because that more than human fills the human nature. Its outer barriers break down. A greater personality sometimes possesses us, which yet we know is ours. And this is the mystery, that divinity is ourselves. And for a while, if we can turn within, we are really not just instruments, we are incarnations of that presence. We are the incarnate divine in the flesh, in the body, manifesting the consciousness. Or we adore the master of our souls. Different modes of yoga. So it is the force of knowledge or the force of surrender and bhakti that for many is really the simpler path. Not easy, but just love the divine, offer yourself to the divine. Let the Divine Mother take care of your destiny, of your path, of your nature, of your yoga. And that is truly the secret of adoration. Complete self-giving, unquestioning, not doubting. When this happens, then I am not concerned with myself. Usually man's concern is for himself. But when that concern is no longer there, then the small bodily ego thins and falls. No more insisting on its separate self. This is the first big obstacle. We all are concerned with ourselves, on its separateness, my needs, my demands, my desires, my difficulties. When I no longer belong to myself, if I can give myself as I am, we don't have to make our gift perfect. The perfect gift comes when it is total and absolute. I give myself to the Mother as I am. I am impure, I am imperfect, I am not yet polished and become an expression of pure gold. She's there for us. She's our Mother. And this is what she has said many times. Just give yourself to me, I'll do your yoga for you. You don't have to worry. But the difficulty is that the ego comes in between and makes all kinds of demands and questions and often complains. This has to go. Whatever is given, we take with gratitude because she is there, she is holding our hand, she is leading us on the path. Whether the path is smooth or not is not for us to judge. It takes us through the highs and the lows. The ego has to go. This is the biggest hindrance, if we can abolish the ego. So because we spend much of our developed evolutionary life to develop an ego, a sense of personality. After it has been developed, we have to start working on breaking it down, a little at a time. You have to make it thin, it's strong, it becomes thinner, it becomes more, finally, invisible, goes away. No more insisting on its separate self, losing the punctilio of its separate birth. I am me, I am like this, my needs are like this. This is my separateness. Everybody's needs are different, mine is this and this is what I want. Again and again and again we make this. In each particular point, punctilio is a person. A punctilious person is a person who is really insistent on having things exactly the way he wants at each point for each thing. This, that, it can't be, I'm not part of the herd of humanity, I'm a separate person. My nature is like this, I want these things, I have asked for these things. And I realize that sometimes it is very risky because if I say, of course I'm not part of a common humanity, in a sense I tell myself, I have been brought up in the ashram, I have been living under Mother's umbrella all my life, so I have a right to make separate claims This is very dangerous. I am nobody. I am just one of possibility through whom she will work. If I can move or push away my ego, that is very difficult. Especially if I have acquired a sense of development, of evolution. We have to push it away. No more insisting on its separate birth. It leaves us one with nature and with God. The body, we are part of the world of nature, we are part of the lower creation, we are also embodiments of the divine. The lower is in the higher is in the lower. The divine has involved himself, plunged himself into the darkness, and that is why from below, through the dark layers of consciousness, the aspiration for the light can burn. The flame can be lit. So here, it's a very wonderful sentence. In moments when the inner lamps are lit and the life's cherished guests are left outside, our spirit sits alone and speaks to its sculpts. The inner lamps, again and again, this inner light, which is there, the lamp is there. We have to light it with all our conscious, aspiring sincerity. We must constantly remember, recall, it is up to me to light the lamp. It is not just lighting an incense stick on the outside and putting it in front of the image. That's all right, there's nothing wrong with that. But it is not enough. You have to light the inner lamp and leave all desires, attachments, ideas, ready-made notions, all the things that we can consider our daily life. These are the cherished guests. I am attached to my nature, I am attached to my surroundings, I am attached most importantly to my own opinions and ideas. All these things have to be wiped off. Then you can be alone with the divine. You are completely washed clean of all the past, all the impurities, and you can speak to yourself. That self is the divine, speaks to its gulfs. A wider consciousness opens then its doors, invading from spiritual silences. A ray of the timeless glory stoops a while to commune with our seized, illumined clay and leaves its huge white stamp upon our lives. When we have washed away all our, you might say, inner barriers, thrown them away, then we are ready to receive the divine without any hindrance. And that ray of the timeless glory comes down invading us, taking over our nature from spiritual silence. It comes to commune. Commune is to really have this inner connection. It is not an external message, an inner closeness, an inner connection with our clay. We are made of mud, but the clay is the lamp. If you can light the lamp, we make clay lamps. So the mud can become capable of expressing light if you can light it. So we become illumined clay. Our bodies can become expressions of the divine and leaves its huge white stamp. It can purify our nature, it can perfect our nature upon our lives. With that line, I think it's too beautiful to say anything more after that.